A lot of people think cold email doesn't work. They say it takes months to see results, reply rates are terrible, and nobody even sees them. Now, I already know they're wrong because I booked over 1,500 sales calls in the past year. But instead of just telling you, I want to prove it. So I'm giving myself 3 hours to build a cold email campaign that books a qualified sales call completely from scratch. Just got this notification yesterday. It was a bit of a crazy one, so I'm updating you guys a bit late. But another private equity firm doing over $400,000 a month in revenue. And I'm bringing you behind the scenes to see if the cold email haters are right, or if it's still one of the best ways to book calls. Now, I've listed out everything we need to get this going, and we have 3 hours to do it all. So diving in, we're gonna have to cover a few steps. The first one is gonna be mapping out the target market, getting an idea of, how many people are within our TAM, how many people we're gonna be able to reach out to in, a short period of time. More people, the better, obviously, because then we can get to the result faster, set up a bigger infrastructure, and just expedite the process. Step 2 is going to be calculating how many leads we need to fit into that total addressable market. Step 3 is going to be building out the lead list. Then we're going to be creating an offer. We're going to be writing the email copy, setting up the follow-up sequences, and then ultimately launching the campaign. Okay, first thing, I need people that we can actually email. Now I'm gonna be targeting private equity firms because it's a space I know pretty well and we can actually help them. But I can't just go into Apollo or some generic database and type private equity firms and take every single person on the list, because it's just gonna be too large, and quite frankly, most people won't be the right fit. So let me hop into Apollo and show you exactly how I'm gonna be filtering this down. So like I mentioned, when you jump into Apollo, there's gonna be a ton of filters, everything from company filters to account location filters, employee filters, industry, so on. This can be super daunting, and to be honest, you could put a ton of work into this and really get some bad results out of it. So I'm gonna kind of expedite this process a little bit, use a bit of a shortcut, and jump in and use my friend ChatGPT on this one. So we've been using this GPT to come up with the keywords and just general search criteria to get down to a pretty solid list. So what I'm gonna do is just tell them exactly what I'm looking for and see what we get as a result. So I'm looking for private equity firms in the US. We want the list to be, let's say, 10 employees or more. And the reason why I do this is because we've had situations in the past where we get firms that are maybe like 1 or 2 people. They don't really have a whole lot of equity to work with. And then truthfully, one, they either end up not being able to afford our service, or 2, if we do end up getting them a ton of meetings, they just don't have the equity to be able to fund the deals. So I'm going to start with 10 employees. It's still a little low. Maybe we can take it up later, but let's see what we get here for now. So I'm looking for private equity firms in the US. We want a list to be 10 employees. Maybe we just start there, see what happens. So it looks like they've given us both the industry filters, private equity, venture capital, and private equity, a bunch of keywords, exclusions, location. I think this is a pretty good start. So we'll put this in and see what happens. The one thing I do know just from, being in and out of Apollo constantly is that you need all of these keywords to be in comma separated format for them to actually be able to be copied and pasted into Apollo. So I'm going to ask for that. We need the exclusions as well. Cool. So let's jump in to Apollo. So industries says private equity. Looks like there's just the one. I actually don't see the other one that they mentioned. So we'll just go with this one here. Oh yeah, sometimes Apollo groups them together. Perfect. Then we want our keywords. So we're just gonna copy this. I'm gonna drop that here. And as you can see, it just stockpiles all of them. You can already see it kind of filtering down up at the top. We're now at 58.2. I'm going to add United States as the account location. So now we're down to 20,000. Employee numbers, we want minimum 10. So let me just let's see what the distribution is. So you can see how the majority are actually under 10. There's 15,000. So we might even want to include some of those just to expand the TAM a little bit. Maybe we bring it down to 6 or 7. And then truthfully, we're not missing out much up here. So I would say almost 7 to 100. And that's a broad range. They're going to have different pain points, obviously, but in the end, what we're offering to them is going to be applicable across the board, and we'll kind of frame the copy that way. There's obviously situations where you can get super hyper targeted on like companies that are exactly within 7 to like 14 employee size, and they're dealing with X point pain point, and like 50 to 100 is dealing with Y pain point. But truthfully, when it comes to our offer, I think it should translate pretty well. So let's do that. You can see here we're down to 5.8K, so it's actually pretty low. That's just the company, so we'll obviously, let me get this back up to 100. That's just the company, so we'll obviously change when we see people, but let's get back in here for that as well. So I'm just going to use this to get the job titles as well. So the one thing with the private equity space is the job titles are kind of all over the place. If you know the finance space, you'll know this well. There's kind of a bunch of people responsible for a bunch of things, and everybody kind of has their hands in the basket. Let's say specifically anyone who is involved in generating deal flow or just high level decision makers. I have a pretty good idea of what this should be, so we'll see what it spits out. Let's just say put them all together. Cool. All right, so just looking in on the people tab here, we're going to want to add the job titles, and we're just going to copy and paste the titles from that search. And as you can see here, we have 16,000 prospects. There's going to be a ton of prospects at the same companies, especially when we get larger. So unfortunately, Apollo doesn't really have the ability to, limit the number of prospects per account. What we might want to do is narrow in on the company side of things. So like I might even bring this back up to that level that we were looking at, maybe bring this down to 50 and just see what the number ends up looking like. So I think that's pretty reasonable. Like I'm okay with reaching out to 10,000 people, given like the size of the infrastructure and the fact that we want to get this rolling as fast as possible. Let's add a few other things just to kind of see what comes up. So we're going to include all email statuses. I'll show you why we do this later, but pretty much everything from verified all the way to unavailable. Don't need personas. Everything else is already pulled over from the company tab. And honestly, we're looking pretty good. The one thing I didn't really do before is double check that these keywords didn't contain anything that might be like all inclusive, like it might bring in another industry, but I honestly think they did a pretty good job. So we'll leave that as is. And yeah, so essentially we're looking at roughly, let's say 11,000 prospects. And that will be what our TAM looks like. All right, so jumping back into our game plan doc here, essentially what we've broken this down to is private equity firms, US, what did we decide on for company size was 10 to 50, so that's pretty good there. So what I'd normally do here is take a look at the full TAM, like everything from probably 5 employees all the way up to 100, see how many companies there are, see how many contacts are within the companies, and not really restrict it all. Generally, like if we were looking back, we probably would have been in like the 40 or 50,000 prospect range, which is a lot. What we do is we would essentially take that 40 or 50,000 and then divide that by 3. So if we were doing 50,000 divided by 3 is roughly 16,666 prospects per month. So the plan would be to reach every single one of those 50,000 prospects in a 3-month or 90-day span, just because we can cycle through at that point. And then we would build out the infrastructure to accommodate basically double that. So 16,666 times 2, which is 33,332. And that would be roughly the amount of emails we'd want to send per month. So let's say the total TAM was roughly 50K, and then we said divided by 3 was roughly 16,666 times 2 equals 33,332. So that's roughly the monthly sending volume that you'd want to build out the infrastructure for. If you are trying to build out the infrastructure to accommodate this specifically, what you'd want to do is divide the monthly sending volume by 20. I roughly use 20 because there's usually 20 business days each month. So 33,332 divided by 20, which means you'd need to be able to send 1.6K emails per day, roughly. Let's say 1.7 because it's 1.666. So 1.7K emails per day. That would be generally what you'd want to look at if you were doing this over a long period of time, because we're just trying to get these results as fast as possible. And I'm trying to show you guys that this is an effective way to book meetings really quickly we're going to do this over the next little bit here. So we'll probably not follow this specifically. If we have roughly 10,000 prospects, we're going to try and get at them as fast as possible. And I've got an infrastructure set up that can reach, hundreds of thousands of people within a month. So we're not going to factor that in, but we should roughly be able to hit that TAM at least in the first 2 days based on what we have set up right now. Now, normally if you had a TAM under 30,000 prospects, I'd probably suggest taking a more targeted approach, layering in email and then adding in LinkedIn and phone and stuff like that on top. But because we're at around 50,000 total prospects within the TAM, and we can realistically do some things to even expand that even more, I'd probably focus specifically on email. We're going to be able to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time, and it doesn't really require that like one-to-one approach. We'll do some personalization and stuff like that in there to make it a little bit more relevant, a little bit more one-to-one feeling. But truthfully, from my perspective, I don't think we really need to add in other channels to be able to get the types of results that we're looking for. So again, this would be the strategy that we'd want to take if we were doing this over the course of 3 months, which is what we do for most of our clients and most of our campaigns. Because we're trying to do this fast, I'm going to break this down differently. So we have 10.9K total prospects. So let's say total TAM equal 10.9K. And right now, our infrastructure, so I just double checked so I could be a little bit more accurate here, can reach 6.5K per day. So 10.9K times 2, that's how many emails we're roughly going to be sending, is 21,800. So that's how many emails we'd send with a 2-step sequence. Our infrastructure can hit 6.5K per day at the moment. So let me just do the quick math. So that means we could roughly reach the entire TAM in 3.35 days. So if we do essentially 21.8 divided by 6,500 equals 3.35. So just under 3.5 days. You'll obviously have to account for things like the gaps between emails and stuff like that as well, but just keeping it general here, that's what this might look like. So now what I'm going to do is pull all of this info from Apollo, take it over into Apify, scrape that, format it, and throw it into Clay. So what you'll have to do here is grab the link from Apollo. You're going to go over to Apify, which is, I believe it's just apify.com. We're going to be jumping into the scraper called Apollo Scraper, scrape up to 50K leads. Use this exact one. It is by Code Pioneer. What you'll have to do is grab the URL, drop it in here, remove the total number of records required. You don't want any sort of cap. And we are going to start. So this is just generally going to run through. It might take a few minutes, but in the end, we're going to get almost 11,000 leads, and then we're going to be able to format that into Clay. So I'll show you that next. All right, so honestly, the scraping is taking a little bit longer than expected. So I might jump in and start some market research just to kind of get ahead of the game. You're obviously going to run into situations like this where you just have to play the waiting game. So I think given that we're on such a tight timeline, I think we're at around 35 minutes. We are going to dive into the market research. So you're going to want to open up ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever kind of tool you want to use, specifically just to get down to the types of like jargon and things like that that you should be using in the space. So again, I know the private equity space pretty well, but I just want to run through a few things, get some ideas. Maybe there's something I might not have thought of before that we could use for the copy and the angle and general offer. So now this is no prompt mastery, but this is roughly what we're trying to get. We know ideally what the offer is going to be, but let's see what it says here. So it says when evaluating deals, they usually frame it around these dimensions. So EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, usually expressed as a range. So 2 to 10 million in EBITDA, revenue threshold, so 10 mil plus in revenue. This is maybe a little bit too specific. This could be good, low burn, high cash conversion. So industry verticals, non-cyclical, essential services, high margin, defensible moats, platforms and add-ons. This is big. Owner founded versus institutional ownership. Jargon they use, deal flow, pipeline, proprietary deal sourcing, multiples, dry powder, bolt-ons, tuck-ins, exit horizon. So we'll definitely be using a lot of these ones up here. And then how to sound like we know the space, use proprietary deal flow, filter by EBITDA. It's actually not bad. I wasn't planning on using this for copy, but we could generally focus on something like this. I have some ideas that I think are going to work, so we'll go through those in a few. But no, this is pretty interesting. So I think this gives us a lot to work with. We'll obviously want to focus on the types of industries that they're going to be targeting and the EBITDA range that they're going to be targeting. And I kind of have an idea for a cheeky personalization that we can use, given a structure of email copy that I know has been working really well lately. So I'll show you guys that in a few. But I think this gives us a good amount of info just as we're waiting for the lead list to start thinking about how we want to position this. So while we're waiting for the data to scrape from Apollo, I thought we would jump in and take a look at where we're at in our checklist. So again, there's about, let's call it 8 steps that we're going to need to go through. We have got this done here. We set up our Apollo filters. We've calculated the total addressable market. We've used the 3-month formula to find the strategy. We've determined that we're going to be doing over 10,000 a month, so it's more going to be volume based. We might not need to use multi-channel touch points as much because of how much volume is available. I might include warm calling potentially, just depending on how long it takes to get responses. If we're getting very few responses, I'll probably put more effort into those and, warm call, maybe connect with them on LinkedIn, things like that, just to really push the process forward, because obviously we only have a set amount of time here. But if results start coming in really quickly, I may just prioritize handling the responses that we have and not get too in the weeds with the other channels. And then, we're essentially on step 3 here. So we're building the list. We have exported the company data from Apollo, and we're just going to be in the process of importing it to Clay. We just need to be able to export the CSV, get the columns that we want, and then we'll jump into some of these other steps. So kind of feeling the pressure a little bit now. We are 20 minutes into scraping and 50 minutes into the whole process. So obviously a little bit short on time. What I'm going to do, and I didn't realize this was even an option until now, is I'm going to export what we have existing right now. And then we'll basically run the process that we're going to in Clay on the first, 45,000 or 4,500 leads. And then we'll just add the rest, deduplicate, so we're not, duplicating the work and doubling the credits that we need to use. And then we'll be able to do it in almost like a 2-part process. This way it'll save us a little bit of time. We'll be able to get to the results faster. So jumping into the export, you're going to want to include all of the key pieces of data that you'll use in the campaign. So first of all, we're going to focus on CSV, first name, last name. I like pulling a name because that's full name, which allows you to enrich later. Title, email, LinkedIn, organization website, organization country, and then this is the individual country. So I think that is pretty good for now. I'm just going to take a quick look, make sure there's no other pieces here that we are missing. You can include personal emails if you want to reach those, which I don't normally do. I think we're pretty good. So let me download this, which should just take 2 seconds. Done. Now we're going to hop over to Clay and upload this. And again, we'll just keep letting this go, run its course as we're kind of setting this up. So what you're going to want to do is create a new workbook in Clay, import from CSV, browse files. We are going to pull in that Apollo list. First row contains column names. Now, real quick, if you're a financial firm, an M&A firm, private equity, investment bank, or if you're a high growth B2B SaaS company, maybe a startup, and you want to build campaigns like this, but you don't want to do any of the heavy lifting, you can book a call below. We'll find you leads to contact, write all of the emails, and build a complete system for you, just like I'm doing right here. So if you want to see if we can help you out, just book a call below. Remember, guys, organize your stuff. It gets messy fast. But yeah, we've got first name, last name, full name, title, email, LinkedIn, organization name, organization website, country, so on. Perfect. That's your standard data. So first thing I'm going to do, and this isn't really necessary, but I just like to keep things clean, is normalize company name. Company name is organization name. We want to normalize the case as well. Continue to add fields. We want the normalized name, and we're going to run on 4.7K rows. So what this is going to do is remove everything like LLC, co, or different things like that, which make the company name not look natural. This is good if you want to use the company name in like the subject line or the body. Generally, we don't, but I'm going to do it just because it's kind of nice to have it clean there. And then website, we're going to do the same for the website. So normalize domain. We want, they change this up. Yeah, let's just go with this one. And then we want the normalized URL. We're going to run that on 4.7K rows. Actually, real quick, let me just double check. I want to do a waterfall just for those that don't have emails. So let's do this. We're going to create a filter that is email is empty. So as you can see here, we have 571 leads that don't have an email. So that's obviously no good. We can't do anything with that. So let's take care of this before we do verification. Essentially what we're going to want to do is create a waterfall. So I think it's just under persons, work email. Let's just use this one. This is where that full name comes in handy that I mentioned before. Company name is going to be organization name and then LinkedIn. So I'm going to save this and not run because I want to do, I'll show you here. Essentially, we want to prioritize some of these databases because these are going to run in tandem. So with LeadMagic specifically, we have an API key, so we can use our own LeadMagic account to pull data for these. The other ones we don't. Obviously, you can get into using those, but generally what we'll do is we'll order it from those that we have the API key for first, followed by those that are the cheapest, and then down into those that are the most expensive. I have never seen this one before, so I'm just going to delete that, but we'll leave the rest of them in here. I like the Dagma, like Witsia. I don't know about these ones, but I'll leave them there, obviously, just to make sure we get the email no matter what. And then we don't want to validate this because we're going to be using our own validation tool. Save. And you can see here it's going to cost roughly 1.1 thousand credits. So let's get that rolling. It's only going to charge you credits for the emails that it actually finds. So it's probably going to be a little bit less than 1.1K, but we'll see what it comes up with here. As that's loading, I'm going to jump back and see where our scrape is at so we can see if we can add some other emails. Yeah, we're still only at 5.6K, so it's going to be a minute there. We will roll with what we have here because truthfully, we just want to prioritize speed. We want to get this campaign out as fast as possible. Truthfully, we can only hit roughly, let's see what we said here. We can only hit roughly 6.5K leads per day. So if we are at, 5.7, we should be in good shape, but we'll see how far we get with this. A little bit of a blooper here, but it looks like this prospect here at Source Capital somehow returned a Roblox email, which is great. I will probably, let's just leave that in there. Let's see what happens with that one. Normally, if I see something weird like that, I'll delete it. But when you're reaching out to 10,000 people, it really doesn't matter. And your infrastructure is large enough. Like if you hit somebody that's, a little bit irrelevant, it's not a big deal. If you're doing something more targeted, maybe your TAM was a little bit smaller, I'd probably be a little bit more careful with that sort of thing. But for now, let's just let it run. Let's see what happens. Maybe he works for 2 different companies. Who knows? All right, so just wanted to do a 1-hour check-in. We're now at the 1-hour mark. We're still waiting for our extra emails to come through the waterfall in Clay. We're also waiting on some of this data to run. We're at 6.5K prospects out of around 11,000. So, just over the halfway mark. These things are definitely taking a lot longer than I'd expected. And truthfully, this is probably the time when you'd want to go in and start diving into copy. But just for the sake of this video, I'm going to do them sequentially so you can kind of see the way I would look at things normally. But yeah, if you're trying to get this done as fast as possible, I definitely multitask here. There is a lot of waiting in some of this data scraping, but because of the price that we're getting it for, look at this, $7.92 for 6,600 emails, you definitely can't complain. So we will roll with that for now, and we'll kind of see where things end up. We'll just keep kind of checking in and seeing how things are going. All right, so we're done. That took way longer than I thought, and it seems to be a trend as we're going through this process, but these things take time. So we have the majority of our emails here. It looks like it actually just start it again, but we'll let it run its course and just kind of get on with the next step so we're not killing too much time. But what we're going to want to do now is merge the emails that we have from Apollo and the emails that we have from our waterfall. So what we're going to do is eliminate this filter. And just to be safe, to ensure that this doesn't run on anything it's not supposed to, I'm going to make this say the waterfall will only run if email is empty. Generate formula. So it's basically saying the waterfall will only run in a situation where the Apollo email was empty. So save and don't run. That's just a fail safe, because with Clay, you never know what is going to happen. You never know what's going to run and burn credits when you don't need them. All right, we got our email here. We also have some emails here. As you can see, these were the ones that we're missing. And what we're going to want to do is create a merge column. So we're going to jump here, merge. So we're going to be merging email, and we're going to be merging work email. So that is this one right here. We're going to save that. Perfect. So I'm going to call this final email. And then what we want to do is see how many of these actually have an email there. So final email is not empty. So we have 4,300 essentially out of 4,700. So there's about 400 that we weren't able to get. What we're going to do is add million verifier in here. So what million verifier does is essentially just confirm that all of the emails that we're using are valid and they're not going to bounce when we reach out to them. By cleaning the email like this, it essentially just prevents us from, any sort of bounces that would negatively affect the reputation when we finally launch the campaign. So definitely recommend doing it. Sometimes I'd even recommend doing it twice, depending on how thorough you want to be. But deliverability ultimately is kind of like the most important factor when it comes to all of this. If you're not landing in the primary inbox, doesn't matter how good your offer is, doesn't matter how good your copy is, how good your list is, you're not going to get anywhere. So million verifier, what we're going to do is we're going to use this HTTP API request. So browse templates, we have one called million verifier, and we basically just set up all of the stats there. I'm going to avoid showing you my API key, so you cannot run with all my credits. And if you saw that there, you did not. So what we're going to do is only run if final, actually, let me do this via AI. So only run if final email is not empty. So generating formula, output is correct, awesome. So that means this has to be here, otherwise it won't run. And that's just, again, to make sure no credits run that we do not need to burn. So save, run 4.3K rows, have that going here. This is going to be another fun one. So let's see how long this one takes. Hopefully all of this Clay work isn't what pushes us past our goal. As you can see here, it's already generating pretty fast. It might not be a crazy bottleneck. What I like to do, again, just keep the columns clean. We'll call this million verifier. And then we want to know what the result is. So you click into here, go to result. You can see that one says error, add result, create column. Oh, and look at that, our first bottleneck. Okay, so you know what? We actually ran into a bit of an issue here, and that is my fault. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump back into this million verifier prompt here. The problem is we are using work email here instead of final email. So essentially we want to put final email into the API key here, save and run 4.3K. So this should fix things up. I may have just burnt a few verification credits here, but c'est la vie. Then what I'm going to do is rename this to verified, and then we are going to filter for verified is equal to okay. So what that means is the verification went through and we're set. And you'll see here it's gone through 41 emails so far. Essentially this is going to tell us how many of these emails we can actually actively send to, and this list will obviously keep going up and up as we kind of go through the process here. So at this point we're kind of running into the issue where Clay and the scrapers are taking a bit too long, but either way, we have our list for the most part, and we kind of know what we're going to be working from. But without an offer that actually makes people respond, this thing's going to be dead before we even get started. See, I obviously sell lead generation, but I can't just say like, hey, do you want leads? Otherwise, that's super boring. So I need something that's actually strong. So let me use AI to speed this up though, because I'm running out of time. So the biggest thing we want to focus on with the offer is the core criteria. Like we want to be specific, we want it to be measurable, we want to know exactly what they're going to be getting out of the situation. But truthfully, a lot of our copy lately has strayed away from the typical like Hormozi style offers where, you know, we'll get you XYZ result in whatever time or you don't pay. We find a lot of that stuff is overused. So we try to pull the fundamentals like specificity and like really understanding their situation, giving them an idea of what they're going to get out of it. And then also we like to layer in things like curiosity in order to actually get them to take action and be interested in what it is that we are going to be providing. So I'll show you a little bit about how we think about this and what we can come up with using ChatGPT here. So I'm going to continue in the same project we were using before where we pulled a bunch of information about their jargon. So I'm going to ask it to help me come up with an offer. I kind of have some ideas that I want to use in terms of personalization. And again, we are running a little bit short on time, so we'll see how much we can pull. But I want to know what their specific target audience is. And I also want to see if we can get their EBITDA range. A lot of private equity firms have their EBITDA range on their website. And if you reach out saying like something along the lines of like, hey, if we could help you find like companies in the healthcare space that have a 2 to 10 million EBITDA, I think that would perform really, really well just because most cold email guys don't even really know what that means, which means it'll set us apart. It'll make us look like we're involved in their industry. And it's obviously something they want. So let me see what we can come up with here. Help me come up with an offer. I like generally what you used for the example cold email, but we want to focus heavily on using a conversational tone and building curiosity. I want this to be short, sub 50 words. I want to use 2 personalizations, 1 target industry, 2 target EBITDA. You can include these in the copy as I have presented them above. I've found success with copy that, how do I want to phrase this? There's a couple of things that I've seen work really, really well in like M&A and some of the other finance campaigns that we've run, or realistically just like any client campaign. It's like goes back to the idea of asking the prospect a question that we know is true. So I found success with copy that asks the prospect a question that we know is true. Let's ask them if they're still interested in finding companies in target industry within, let's say this is target EBITDA range. So I kind of like answered my own question here, but let's see what it spits out. Curious, are you still looking for companies in target? We're helping firms line up owners willing to talk before they hit a broker's auction. I like this. The idea of like off-market deals is really appealing to private equity firms because then you're not really like competing over them, and the pricing is usually a little bit better. I like using first name. Let's add a degree of specificity to this and make it somewhat. I almost like the idea of not using a quantifiable number. It just comes off more conversational. Like I know being super specific gives people a reason to jump on the call. They know what they're going to get out of it. There's no questions essentially, like you're pre-handling objections. But I kind of want to take a more conversational approach with this. So I'm going to, let me pull both of them over. So we are jumping into email copy. So the main offer would technically, like if we wanted to go Hormozi style with it, we help, private equity firms connect with, 20 to 30 target industry companies within target EBITDA range in 90 days. I haven't been doing any sort of like, or you don't pay or like guaranteed or anything like that. We've actually been running a proof of concept, which is basically just like a trial or like a sprint. So we could say interested in a proof of concept to see if this could be viable for you or something along those lines. This is super rough. And again, it's probably not going to be the copy we use, but just for the sake of this video, I figured I would just do like something a little bit Hormozy style, and then the more conversational approach that we'll take this. Jumping into subject lines, I actually had someone on my team put together this, which I think is really strong. So essentially what it is, it's a prompt that you can put into ChatGPT or any other LLM and basically come up with a subject line for you given the way that we format them normally. So let's jump in here. We'll start a new chat and we'll drop in the prompt. Here's my email copy. And I'm just gonna say, here's my email plan, and I'm gonna share the information. So I'm gonna share the information from that last run that we did, just so it has a good idea of what the email copy could be, a little bit of the background history, stuff like that. So we'll see what this comes up with. So deal flow note, EBITDA range, pipeline update, platform add-on, sourcing question. So I kind of like this idea of using off market. So I would say like off market, maybe off market opportunity idea would be a good one. Let's just jump here. This is a little long. I normally like to stick to 3 words, and I guess this is technically 1 word, so we'll leave it. Truthfully, I don't want to get too crazy with subject lines. I'm of the opinion that they really don't matter and they're not what makes or breaks an email. So maybe we'll just do something along the lines of question mark, or even off market opportunity. Something like that. Again, I'd probably even just stick with this first one or even this second one here. I think these are both pretty strong. I've seen, and now I want to go lowercase for all of these. Again, more casual, the more people are going to think that it's just something written by, like a friend or like a coworker or something like that. I found using first name and subject line has almost been overdone. So I might not use that one, but these are some general ideas. So let's stick with those. So normally I use Claude to kind of come up with copy, but given I've kind of reached out to this audience a few different times, I kind of want to just stick with what I know will work, especially because we're trying to get to results as fast as possible. We're trying to get that book meeting really quickly in a very short period of time. So I kind of want to work from what I know. A lot of the copy that I've been using lately that's been working really, really well has just been using first name without any sort of greeting or anything like that. And then we want to infer that we did our research a little bit. So I want to do something along the lines of like, based, I can't type, on the info on your website, seems you guys primarily invest in, and then we'll go back to this target industry. Let's make this all font 10. Invest in target industry with, I want to just take a quick look at these ideas again. So based on the info on your website, seems like you guys primarily invest in target industry within EBITDA range. And then I would just validate this. So something along the lines of like, still the case. And then again, this is going to be almost like a 2-step email. This is what we've seen work really well, where you ask a question in the first line that you know the answer is yes to, or like it's very highly likely. And then we're kind of farming the response from them. What I mentioned in one of my previous videos is that this is where most people stop. They'll just run this video and then say, signature here at the end. This is great. It's short. It's going to get through a lot of spam filters, and it's going to come off as very conversational. The thing that it doesn't do is give them any reason to respond. Like, even if the answer is yes, why would they respond? What's in it for them? So my variation on this, and again, watch the other video, but I call this the Trojan horse strategy. Essentially, what it allows you to do is infer that you have something of value that they want access to. So I would actually like to use some of these ideas down here. You could do something like this. If so, might have a few off-market opportunities. I think by saying we have a few off-market opportunities, if we say a few for you or something along those lines, even something like this, just let me know. I think this would perform really well. The one thing I want to avoid is being like deceiving. So what I might change this to, as much as I think this will probably be the better performing angle, I'll probably change this. If so, I might have a way to source off-market opportunities for you. Just let me know. And the reason why I do this is kind of like thinking about the inbox management process. If you say you might have some opportunities for them, they may just say, okay, you know what, we'll send them to me. Like, we don't need a conversation, just give me their contact. So I want to avoid that. I want to make it seem more like we have a process that can get them these off-market opportunities, so that, you know, they know that we have something that they want access to. This makes the meeting required. Now, again, this is going to be a two-step email. So as much as this does some heavy lifting, the focus is going to be on the follow-up. So if someone says, yes, you know what, I'm interested, you can go for the meeting. If they don't answer, we'll jump into email 2A. I actually want to do 1B though real quick. And I think my hunch is that this first line is going to be really strong. I think this might be where we try some different jargon or different like benefits, and specifically around this right here. So I almost want to test a different phrasing. I like proprietary opportunities. This one might be more literal. Instead of like calling it a off-market opportunity, that doesn't necessarily say exactly what is happening. So if so, I want to make this shorter. It ended up getting pretty long compared to the previous one, and I want them to be a direct A/B versus each other. So I don't want too many different variables. If so, might have a way to source off-market opportunities for you. Just let me know. If so, might have a way to source. Let's make this deals with founders looking to exit who haven't engaged in a banker yet. Still a little bit longer here, but they're both one line. So I think that should be all right. The thing that I want to test in 2A is actually using, or I guess 2A and 2B is actually using a CTA. So instead of just like creating curiosity and kind of like inferring, I would rather be direct, because this is our last shot to get them interested. So first name, I always like to do some things like this. Or, you know, I actually want to try something. So let's use first name farther in the first line. Again, going after that conversational approach. So apologies, maybe even we'll just do this. Apologies, first name. I was a bit vague with, we've essentially created. Actually, let's do this. So apologies, first name. I was a bit vague with my last message. I like to do this always as a question, so it eliminates having to have like a third line. If we had a system that could source proprietary opportunities for you in the target industry space who have validated their EBITDA and timing to exit, would that be worth a chat? And then, so we'll do signature, and then we want the B version. Again, we got to be scientific with these A/B tests. They should realistically just have a few small things here. So would that be worth sending? Would that be worth sharing more info? So what we're going to do with this one is make it sort of like a low resistance CTA versus hard CTA. So in this case, we'll send over whether it's like a Loom video or just like an elaboration on what the offer is. And in this case, we'd book directly for the meeting. Both cases, obviously, they're very similar in phrasing. The benefit is there. This kind of adds that conversational tone. We kind of give them exactly what it is that we have. Like, we can get these proprietary opportunities for you that we specifically in the target industry space. And then it's important for them to know that they have validated their specific EBITDA and timing to exit. And then we'll say, would that be worth sharing more info? So now I'm just going to quickly jump back into Clay and grab these personalizations, because as much as they are great in theory, like it's awesome to have them, we just have to see if we're able to effectively pull them and do so in enough time, because we're obviously getting a little short here. I think we're at the hour 40 mark, so definitely creeping up on us. So I just jumped back into the Clay table to check in on the verification, and it looks like we only had, just under 1,500 that were verified, and that's really low. Usually you're looking at something between like 60 and 80% are verified out of a total list, but to get 1,500 out of 47, I just want to double check to see if something happened that, shouldn't have, but it looks accurate, unfortunately. That's the one thing with trying to really maximize your TAM, especially in Apollo, is that if you include almost every single type of email that they have or lack thereof, you're going to get some junk and you're going to end up spending a little bit more on verification credits. So let's just jump back in, add that filter back on, verified equal to okay. That means we're only looking at verified emails. We got 1552. Now we can throw in our personalizations. We only want to personalize the ones that are verified because those are only the ones that we can send to. Luckily, because it's only 1500 at this point, it's going to be a lot faster, which works in our favor in this case. And then obviously we only have 4700 of the original like 11K that we pulled from Apify. So after we have this all set up, we can go in and grab the additional emails, and we'll just include a deduplication here, so that essentially just prevents any of the same contacts being added, and then running the credits, multiple times. So let's get this going. Let's add our personalization. So I'm going to jump in, use AI, and we actually have a template, I think, for these two that we were chatting about. So we want private equity investment criteria, and that is going to pull industry and EBITDA. So we want normalized URL. We're going to apply the template, save. I'm going to run a test of just like 10 rows and see what comes out. All right, so this is looking pretty good. The one thing I want to ensure is that there's no, I guess we can include this actually later. Let me just put something together real quick. All right, so what I did there real quick was I just created a few different prompts to be able to run the personalizations. So this one specifically is going to be pulling the investment criteria that they're looking for. This one is going to be pulling a company summary. So just visit the website, write a short summary. And then this here is going to be our first line. I kind of want to change a few things here just to make sure that it's good. So I'm going to remove $signs. I don't want those. I told them not to include $signs, but it looks like it came through anyways. I want this to start with first name. So let's go. We want the still true at the end. Let's try this one more time. So it's clearly not listening to me. As you guys know how ChatGPT can be. We have still true here, but this one here is throwing it without. So what I'm going to do is do this. This is kind of like a sneaky. Okay, see, it's because I see. So what's happening here is I have two different outputs. So I have still true down here, but not up here. So we're going to add this. And again, we want this lowercase because we're going to put the first name before that. And again, same thing here. Let's try this one more time. So again, it's still kind of giving me a bit of trouble, but what I'm going to do here is insert a column, insert formula. This is called investment email sentence. So we're going to add a formula next to this. Formulas are a nice way to fix things up if a prompt isn't necessarily giving you the right information or formatting it the right way. So I'm going to say ensure that the output in, scroll down, response, it starts with a lowercase letter. If the response is in quotation, remove them. So it's just cleaning it up a little bit just to make sure that the output is proper. Yeah, see, this is perfect. One thing we have to change is if the response starts with I, do not make it lowercase. Cool. Let's try this one more time. Come on, Clay. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to delete. I'm obviously impatient. We're almost at hour 2 here, so I want to get this cooking. So I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to create the formula, ensure that output in response starts with, okay, now let's try it one more time. Hopefully it runs faster. Perfect. Yeah, you can see here capital I, no $signs, has the question. Cool. I love it. Sweet. We have, oh man, error evaluating formula. Cool. Let's try this one more time, see what happens. There we go. Sick. So now we have everything we want. I ran it on 10 rows. We're going to run the full thing. Run all 1.5, run all 1.5. And then this one will run after. I guess we should have set this up. So only run if we use AI. Investment criteria. Response isn't blank. We almost should have done it as a waterfall where left runs first, but again, we're getting short on time here, so I've been in a little bit of a rush. Oh, I guess this one isn't dependent on this, but the last one is here. So save, don't run. We want to put a conditional formula on this one. Only run if investment criteria response and it's called summary, company response summary, aren't blank. So what we're going to run into is the prompt running with those blank, and it'll probably just make some stuff up. So I want to make sure that I don't know if I need to run that necessarily again to make sure that it comes through, but we'll see what the output looks like. Honestly, as I'm recording this video, I'm realizing how much info I'm giving you guys, so hopefully you put this to good use. It's actually running a lot faster than I expected. So I'm just going to go back to the game plan list. We've exported our company data, we've ran the waterfalls, we've verified emails, we're doing our personalization, we've created the offer, albeit it's a little bit different than what you'd normally run. We generated some offer variations, not necessarily 10. We added some risk reversals to some degree. We wrote the email copy. We didn't use social proof, but I think we can probably run that in this, maybe in the second email. Truthfully, I think we could probably get away without it. If I would do that, I'd probably do it as a PS. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll A/B test with and without the PS with social proof. To be honest, social proof used to be a staple. Now I'm finding it's less so, and conversational like text is a little bit more important. So take that with a grain of salt. What we could do is 2A and 2B be the same version of this, one with PS, one without. 2C and 2D be this version, one with PS, one without, and then go from there. But I really don't know if it's necessary. I'm going to try it without first. I think based on what I've seen recently, we could probably get away without it. We kept things concise. We were testing different angles. Now we basically just have 2 steps left, step 7, step 8. So we need to do the follow-up sequences, get everything loaded up into Email Bison, which is going to be our sending tool. And then we're going to launch the campaign. Now this is going to be a pretty important step of the process because you don't want to mess any of this up. You just put in all this work into the lead list, all this work into the email copy, and you've really set yourself up to launch a successful campaign. So this is where all of these little minute details kind of come in. And you just need to nail these to ensure that the next couple of days go really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new campaign. We're going to call this Growth Flare. It's going to be an outbound campaign. And we're going to import a CSV, but we're just waiting for our clay table to run. I think it's probably a good time to jump into sequencing. The schedule we already have set up. I just use this typical template, which is just 8 to 5, Monday to Friday in EST. Settings, you're going to want to basically set this up to maximize what your capacity is capable of. Like if we're trying to send 6,000 emails per day, which we don't necessarily have that many leads yet, we're going to want this to be 6,000. I don't normally go up this high, but let's just do that to ensure that we're able to get this all done in a short amount of time. Never track opens. We're always going to do plain text. Don't use an unsubscribe, and we're going to include auto replies in the stats. That just helps us better track deliverability. For email accounts, again, like if you mapped this out at the beginning, kind of like I showed you guys, where you take your TAM, divided by 3, set up the amount of email accounts necessary to hit your entire TAM in 3 months. Great. We already have an infrastructure set up, so obviously we're going to be able to speed run this process a little bit. I'm just going to load up every single one of my email accounts so we can send this as fast as possible, get it out to the list as fast as possible, and get that meeting booked. So the one thing that I didn't include yet is spin-taxing the email. And if you don't know what spin-tax is, it essentially takes the email that you're writing and creates a bunch of different variations of it so that everything that you provide is kind of one-to-one, if that makes sense. So like if every single word that you share has 3 different variations of it, there's going to be thousands of combinations of unique emails that you're going to be sending out. Luckily, we're using personalization to be a big part of this email. So the first part of the email is going to be completely personal for each prospect, which eliminates any need to use spin-tax. And then obviously first name is going to be unique for everybody. The only thing realistically that's going to be necessary to spin-tax is the second line in email 1 and then the entirety of email 2. So what I'm going to do is just spin-tax. Let's do email 2 first, just because the full email here, you'll get a better idea of what that looks like. So I'm using a tool called Spin-Tax Baby by Spin-Tax Creation. And basically I just drop this in here and run. If you want to get really specific, you can add a bunch of rules to it, but definitely not necessary. So you see here, apologies, sorry, my apologies, first name. I was a bit vague with that last message. My last message might have been a little unclear. That last note might have been too vague. If we had a system, suppose we had a system, imagine a platform that could source proprietary, exclusive, off-market opportunities I don't like the word exclusive because that's not a word that they use. Off market and proprietary makes sense, so we'll use those. It always gives you 3 options, but you can cut it down to 2 if one doesn't make sense, and I find I end up doing that a lot. Who have validated their EBITDA and are prepared, are looking to exit. Would that be worth a chat? Would you be open to a quick chat? Do you think that's worth the conversation? I don't like this last one. That's a little heavy, but let me pull these over into the email copy. So, and we will clean these up a little bit. So apologies, sorry, my apologies, don't mind that. I think all of this is good. If we had a system, suppose we had a system, if we had a way to, and then I'm going to take this and put it into the Spintax. If we had a system that, or if we had a way to, I almost want to try this again too. If we had a platform that could source proprietary, maybe they do use the word exclusive, but I'm just going to leave it out just in case. In the industry space, who have validated their EBITDA and are already prepared, do you think that'd be worth? I'm just going to change this to chat. Worth a chat ends up being like pretty generic. A lot of people use it, but truthfully, I find it still works. I wouldn't really concern yourself with that too much. And then we're just going to want to do the same for this one. Because this first line is exactly the same, I'm just going to copy this completely. Again, when you're A/B testing, you want the variables to be as similar as possible. So if you drop this into the Spintax GPT, you might get something different. So I think just by limiting that possibility, you'll be in a better situation. The only difference between these 2 emails is actually that would that be worth sharing more info. So I'm actually only going to pull this part here, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull this again. So we're eliminating variables, and then, yeah, would that be worth? Cool. So now those are done. The only thing we need to do here is this. Sometimes it'll change the formatting, like if you use brackets, don't change formatting. So it's basically going to end up looking like this. It's going to end up looking like that for this one. And then obviously signature. These aren't the exact variables for Bison, but we'll set those up once we're in the campaign. I'm just putting them there as placeholders. But this is basically email 1. And then we're going to have the same thing for email 1B. We just need to update this part here, Spintax that out. It learned from its last mistake and gave us the formatting. So we're set there, and then we want the signature. So I'm going to start setting this up in Email Bison. We're going to go sequence, create from scratch, add email step. We want 2 variations on email 1, 1, 2, 2 emails on variation 2, 1, 2. I actually want to put a delay of at least 3 days here. Yeah, I know we're trying to do this ASAP, but I'm going to use 3 days. We're going to go into our email copy and find our subject lines. I'm just going to use this one. I find like a lot of people get caught up in testing different subject lines, and truthfully, it's like the least important, I guess, like aspect of these campaigns. So just roll with the one that you think is going to be the best. Keep it short, keep it curiosity inducing, value based. Don't give out everything that the email contains in the subject line. Otherwise, there's no reason to read your email. Lowercase letters usually, just so it looks conversational. It's not like a marketing email. And then, yeah, we set it up so it's a threaded reply. Email 2 will be after email 1, so they get the context of the first reply as well. We're going to go in and I'm going to add variable first name. We're going to add variable sender email signature, and then let's pull in the rest of the copy. So we're down here. We're going to pull in this. Sometimes when I pull over the subjects, the variables rather, from copy, I like to just put them in again just to make sure that they came through properly. Another thing with Bison too is clear formatting, just to make sure it's all formatted the exact same. We're going to do a save, and then we want the next one. So let me just pull that, and then same deal. Just going to make sure that this is good. We're going to add an email signature. We're going to clear formatting, so it's all the same. That's good. We want this to be threaded reply as well. Now we just need to double check on our Clay run. It looks like we're good. So what we're going to do, just to make sure that everything in here has the variable, is run another filter. This is going to be sentence formatting is not empty. So we got 1,000 contacts left. We're going to have to come up with an alternate solution for the other 500, but I want to get these 1,000 out as fast as possible. And again, we'll go back to that Apify scrape, pull the other half of the leads and add them in here. But realistically, once we pull everything in, we should be looking pretty good in terms of volume, especially given the fact that we're doing this quick. We got infrastructure set up to burn through 6,000 contacts per day, we should be looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this. I'm going to download as a CSV, and then we're going to go into Bison. We're going to import CSV, upload from file, done. So we want first name, last name. We don't want this email. Title, sure, that's fine. Company, we can use normalized name. We have AI personalization is going to be this one. LinkedIn, we don't really need these two guys. We're not going to be using them. Actually, we do need industry. So that is going to be investment criteria. And I think we're set. Actually, this is going to be organization, normalized domain. So let me just double check. The most important thing is going to be first name, last name. We need email in there. So email, actually, that's my bad. We want final email. That's the one that's verified and merged. Normalized name, sentence formatting. All right, we're good. Let's get this going. This is going to be Growth Flare, private equity. We're sitting at 2 hours and 14 minutes here. So we are ticking for time. All right, so those are all in. Now what we want to do is pull over our first email. So what we're going to do is this AI personalization, and then we're going to throw in our second line. So our second line is going to be this here. Trying to cook through this fast. We want an email signature, save. I'm also going to do the clear formatting, save. Go to the next one, same thing, first name, comma, AI personalization. Then we want our second line from this one here. Oh, I guess I mixed those up. So let me just use this one here instead. We're going to add the sender email signature format, and we'll run a preview. So Hank, how to look at your website, saw that BioStar Capital invests in medical device technologies with a focus on commercial relevance and clinical impact. Still true? If so, I may be able to identify off-market opportunities for you. Feel free to say so. Yeah, we need to fix that spin tax. I don't like that at all. Just give me a heads up. Just let me know. Let's try this one more time. Just give me a heads up. I don't like that either. You know what? We're actually going to pull this completely. If so, could have a method define exclusive. Again, they're using that exclusive thing. I don't like that at all. Off market or proprietary. Cool. And you guys don't have to include this type of thing in your email signature. Signature can be whatever. I've just been using this lately. I found it's an interesting way to kind of show off social proof without sharing social proof. So a bit of a hack there. And then let's just double check. This one looks good. Cool. That is all looking solid, and we are getting short on time here. So what I'm going to do is double check this one. Preview looks good. Honestly, I think we're ready to launch this first batch. Again, I want to prioritize speed, get this one out, and then we'll go back and backfill the other batch from Apify and make sure that it's all deduplicated, so we're only adding net new leads. That way, we can literally just add them into the Clay tables, hit run, include deduplicate, and then we'll export those, throw them into this campaign. We can just add them on top, and that'll help us fill out the volume. Obviously, at this point, we only have 1,000 leads in there, and we were thinking we were going to be closer to like 6,000. So really got to get that number up. I may go back to Apollo and add some stuff there, but let's get this launched for now. The one thing we probably do want to take care of is the subsequences as well. We've got our list, we've got our copy, but without having like follow-up subsequences, I don't think we'll get meetings as fast as I would want to. People get busy, things happen. So I'd want to make sure that those are in place. I'm just going to double check what we have here. And I think we can roll with, just for the sake of time, what I have set up already. So you can see here, meeting request subsequence. We have this set up and it's active. Basically, it's a 3-step. Hey, just checking back to see if you're still interested in a chat around new deal flow. That works out well. Can reshare my link here if you're up for it. Just want to make sure this doesn't slip through the cracks. First name, maybe we can find some time in the next few days, or happy to shelf it for now. I always like this one, it's kind of humorous. First name looks like you may have caught up. If creating a system to generate new business opportunities is still a priority, let me know. And this is 1 day is the first gap, 2 days, and then 4 days. Again, we're just going to roll with this because we're trying to save time and get this loaded. Ultimately, you can come back to this after the campaign's launched. It doesn't necessarily need to be there first, but we've got everything in place. We've got our contacts. We've got our sequences set up and all of our copy. We've created our offer. We have our tests. There's a couple tests going on here. We've scheduled it out to go out during business hours. Settings are good, plain text. Email accounts are locked and loaded. And I think we can send these out. So let's go ahead and push launch. We're going to do launch campaign. Are you sure? And then it's going to process. All right, so next thing, obviously, now that we've launched, is going to be handling any interested responses that come in. We're going to be calling all of those within the first 5 minutes, try and get that speed to lead and really prioritize getting the meeting booked. Because ultimately, the faster you can get to them in the inbox, the more likely they're still going to be in the inbox, kind of working on whatever it was they were originally, and the more likely they're going to be to respond. So that should get our numbers up. But other than that, we'll kind of see how it goes. As you can see here, it's all set and ready to launch. Boom, now just like that, we're launched. So over the next few days, I'll be checking everything and updating you guys on the results. All right, so just got a notification. First positive response is in on the campaign we launched. This is 6 a.m. the next day, as you can see here. Let's jump in. It looks like passed along your info, looked at your YouTube channel, found it quite intriguing. Would love to hear your thoughts on how to source deals with founders looking to exit. Awesome. So this is a great response. It looks like it was passed off. Let's jump into Email Bison and see what the actual reply looked like. Actually, it looked like this came in a little bit later, so at some point last night. But what we're going to do is we're going to shoot over a quick response. So looks like it came through from Morgan, and I just did some research. It looks like Morgan is on the biz dev team. So we'll just do something along the lines of like, hi Morgan, and I'm just going to check my availability real quick just to let her know a few times that work. All right, cool. So I'll shoot that over to her, and then I'll probably go and connect with her on LinkedIn, throw her into a subsequence just in case she doesn't follow through. And I'll update you guys once she books in. Another private equity firm doing over $400,000 a month in revenue. Let's jump into Bison and see what this looks like. So, good morning, Aaron. Do you have time next week to connect? Love to schedule a call to learn more about Growth Layer. And as you can see here, it came directly from the email that we set up. And it looked like we called out the fact that they were targeting owner-managed companies with an EBITDA of 4 million or greater. Again, just that slight personalization obviously did the trick. And looks like we have that set up. So we're on day 2 now, but I wanted to do a quick overview of what things look like all in all. Essentially, what we've got going on here is the 2 campaigns, total just under 3,000 total contacts. And we're about 50% of the way through both of them. That means we've gone through email 1 on both almost perfectly. Overall, we have around a 1.3, 1.4 reply rate. That's 43 replies total. And then lastly, on the 2 campaigns, we have 8 interested off of one, 2 interested off of the other. That's a 21% positive response rate on the first, 18% positive response rate on the second. I can tell you guys right off the bat, there's some issues with deliverability on this end, probably some problems with the accounts that we're using. But all of that said, we are still able to generate 2 appointments with 2 really solid private equity firms in just 2 days. So not too bad. And the best part about this is, we're still only halfway through the campaign. There's still lots of opportunity for this campaign to, wrap up and book in some more meetings. And then also, the follow-up sequences will then kick in on the back end. So again, we're not going to lose out on these 10 opportunities here. We have 2 out of 10 booked, which is a 20% meeting book rate. If we get that up to 50%, awesome. We'll see how it goes. Honestly, with the low reply rate there right off the bat, I was a little concerned about getting these meetings booked, but in the end, obviously, we were able to get it done. But I guess it's safe to say that cold email doesn't really take a long time to see results, and it is, in fact, a good way of booking calls. Honestly, it feels good for the ego, not gonna lie there. But either way, if you wanna see how we use these strategies to book 42 calls in a single month for one of our clients, watch this video and I'll see you there.